Go to Bill King, the king of college football talk. Hear him 6 to 9, Nashville Sports Radio every single day. And joins us every Wednesday on halftime for a look around college football. Bill, how's life treating you these days?
Guys, doing good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good, yeah. Hey, man, I mean, aside from the idea that you have one postponed game this weekend in the SEC, might have another one coming. And I don't mean to just throw that off to the side. I love no cupcake schedule right now. I love no non-conference games. I have absolutely enjoyed everything about SEC only, at least for the first 3 weeks. I don't see how I'm not going to love this for the entire football season as long as we get to the end of it. I know this isn't the direction college football is going to go fully, but I love the way that the games have actually played out. I think this all SEC thing has been great.
Yeah, we were just talking about that this morning, and I really had no expectations. I just wanted to get on the field, and that was plenty good enough for me. And we've got that. Now that I'm week to week getting to look at the next SEC on SEC game, one after another, it's spoiled. I was thinking about that literally today. It's going to be interesting in the future when they go back to 8 games and 4 non-conference and all that. I'm still going to love the game, but I'm getting spoiled by this. I totally agree.
Yeah, but the game and the officiating, I guess, is a whole different thing. We haven't brought up the end of the Arkansas-Auburn game at all today. The only reason I'm doing it with you is because we haven't had a chance to talk about it with you yet. We wanted to put it to bed on Tuesday. Our Hogs got hosed. They were told to like it by the SEC office at the end. It feeds the narrative that a lot of folks here in Arkansas feel that the SEC is tilted against them, but there are other reasons they lost that game, but I wondered what you thought about that call and the way it was handled by the SEC.
Yeah, robbery. Absolute theft. There's no other way around it. It's not even debatable by reviewing it. It's a fumble. I mean, he was almost turned backwards when he spiked the ball. That is a live ball. Arkansas, despite what the SEC said, did make an effort to get on the ball. And it might not look like a typical play where everybody's running wild, but players still made an effort. They said that canceled it out by virtue of the rule. I wouldn't be over it. I know there's nothing you can do about it. There's an ultimate arbiter who's already said, here's what we're doing about it, nothing. But it was. If I'm the Razorbacks, I'm going to take a while to get over this one.
I'm going to ask a question that might make me sound naive to some listeners. Some of those listeners would say you are. I don't mean you. I mean me. Does the SEC protect certain teams, certain schools in whatever sport? Is that what we saw Saturday? Is there, is conspiracy the right word? You've paid attention to the SEC longer than any of us has. What do you think?
Generally, no. Not in that case. That's just bad officiating. I can give you an example of when there's bias, and I don't need anybody else's opinion because I was there. And I might have told you this. The very first year of the SEC East-West was when Arkansas and South Carolina joined, as you know, in 1992. Mm-hmm. First 2 years, they played the SEC championship game at Legion Field in Birmingham, and I was there. And the very first year, Alabama was undefeated. And Florida had several losses, including Tennessee that year, but Florida ended up winning the East. And the game tied at 21 at the end. Alabama's a heavy favorite, and Alabama's the league's chance at a national championship. In an era where we were told heading up to 92, the SEC just made the worst ruling ever by adding teams and then going to a championship game. You're just going to beat each other up, and nobody's ever going to win, which was a totally wrong way to look at it. But anyways, I'm sitting there in the press box next to Roy Kramer, one of the 2 best commissioners in the history of sports, college sports, and the other SEC dignitaries. And when Florida tied that thing up late, before Antonio Langham's interception to win it for Alabama, Florida tied it up late 21-21. These guys all got up and started pacing. Like, this is really screwed up if Florida wins this game. So I've seen it. I know what it looks like. But in that case, the Auburn-Arkansas game, no, that's not what you were looking at.
Speaking to Bill King here on Halftime. Bill, let's jump around the SEC and kind of get your thoughts on what happened during Week 3. And I think for me, I want to start with Mississippi State because I think a lot of people maybe thought maybe it'd been a fluke when Arkansas came down and beat Mississippi State or great defense or Barry Odom. And then the following week playing Kentucky, they only put up two points. What's going on with Mike Leach and Mississippi State right now?
Threw 6 picks, guys. I didn't know you could do that. Did you know it was possible to break SEC passing records in 1 week? 2 weeks later, you throw 6 picks? I didn't know you could do that either, but that's been happening. They don't run the ball. Leach refuses to run the ball. He's got Colin Hill, and look, the Washington blueprint, the Jimmy Lake blueprint, obviously Arkansas did a fantastic job defending that, and right now they've got nothing. It's not clicking, the air raid, and they're not good enough on defense to keep people held back, as we know. So, yeah, it's a complete 180 reversal right now. And they get the Aggies, who are a pretty hot team right now, this coming Saturday, which doesn't look favorable for Mississippi State.
Obviously, another one of the big matchups, and you brought up with kind of Mississippi State open up against LSU, and I think set the whole world on fire with that.
Yeah.
LSU Florida this weekend. For the assumption of this, let's just assume the game is happening, which I think me and Phil had already talked about. We don't think it personally will with all the COVID.
I think they just announced it. I think they just announced it's not.
Okay. Then, well,
I think so.
We'll phrase it like this. I was kind of surprised with how Florida, they scored with them, but Florida's defense went just completely missing against Texas A&M, and A&M obviously getting a big win and finally getting Jimbo Fisher that elusive top 10, top 5 victory. So it's a big weekend for A&M, but kind of a questioning weekend for the Florida Gators.
Florida through what some may call a lost decade from 2009 to right now, let's say, even though they've had some good teams in there, and probably by default, we know they won the SEC East a couple of years ago back-to-back, but it was more by default, and they were just so good they won it. But through all the ups and downs of this last 10, 11 years for the Gators, they've always been good on defense, sometimes better than good on defense. And that's not the case right now. They've got a personnel lapse. They don't really have many dudes on defense right now. They don't have a lot of big bodies on the defensive line, for example, like Georgia does. Georgia is crazy good up front, as you guys know, led by Jordan Davis, who's 6'6", 345, who's not blockable up there. Florida doesn't have any of that. And they're also weak in the secondary. They're short coverage people, and that's not going to get fixed by having a meeting and discussing it and taking a player and moving them here or there. This is what you're going to get out of Florida this year. A whole lot of offense and a whole lot of points on the other side.
Got a big one this weekend. We'll be talking about it probably for the rest of the week. Georgia and Alabama. You just brought up the stout defensive line for the Bulldogs. Obviously, the Crimson Tide coming in after allowing a lot of points against Ole Miss this weekend. What's your take on what's your take on Alabama, Georgia? I think I'm leaning more towards the Crimson Tide myself. What says you?
Yeah, Nick Saban is great at a lot of things, right? And I don't use the G word much, but with him, yeah. And one of the best things he does is take something that's not going well and motivating it, using it as fuel, gasoline. And the yardage and the points given up against Ole Miss is exactly that. They're going to play a really good game against Georgia. This game will be tight. It'll go down. And the thing about it, guys, and I know the players and coaches on both sides aren't looking at it like this, but you don't have to win this game. It needs to be close because you're going to rematch. Unless something dramatic happens, you're going to rematch in the SEC championship game. And you can lose this game and absolutely be just as alive as you could possibly be for the playoffs. Now, you can't lose another game in there, and then you rematch, and then let's say the second game's close, then they could both be in the semifinals again. Maybe opposite each other, what have you. But, yes, I'm like you. I think Alabama plays a really good game. Now, you literally, the iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. You got Alabama's offense, 700-something yards against Ole Miss, against Georgia's defense. And those might be the two best units in college football, guys. And we haven't seen Ohio State yet. But you got crazy strength on wild strength going head-to-head there. And, Georgia's offense is starting to really get it together. They're adding pieces. The young running backs are starting to play well. They've added a receiver, the Jackson kid, who's playing well. They've got a young tight end out of the West Coast who's a big 6'7" kid that's starting to use a little bit more. And then Alabama defensively – They have players. They may not be Georgia, but they're better than they looked in that Ole Miss game.
Bill, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
As always, enjoy the weekend of however many football games we do get, because they're starting to drop like flies.
Thanks, guys.
You got it. Bill King, Nashville Sports Radio. Florida's home game against LSU Saturday reportedly set to be postponed. That according to News 4 out of Jacksonville, and Neil McCready, who covers Ole Miss, said Lane Kiffin said this came 30 minutes ago, that there are some COVID issues with Ole Miss. They're not in a good place numbers-wise, but according to Lane Kiffin, they could play the game today. Saturday might be in jeopardy, though. We'll see. How about that? COVID attacking the SEC. You knew it was going to happen.
How you going to handle it?
We'll see how they handle it. That's exactly right. And we'll wrap the show up. Cherry on the top. Change my mind. Stay tuned.